Right then, so today I want to talk about Serio from Pacoima. He was another carnal that was made in 2011. But prior to that, I met him in the late 90s in High Desert State Prison. When I got to High Desert State Prison out of Corcoran Shoe, I had driven up to Sea Yard, 7 block, and as I was there, Serio was there, and at that time he was nobody. He was just a camarada like everybody else, and he was trying to make a name for himself as well. So he got there as well. I forget what joint he came from, but he came from a joint. I came from Corker Shoe, and that's where we met up at. And during that process, when we got there, we were on lockdown. One way or another, he hooked up with a vato named Crow from Santa Maria. At that time, Crow had the yard. He had been there for a minute, so he had Sea Yard, which was a 180 yard in High Desert. Well, Serio hooked up with Crow, and we were getting close to getting off this lockdown. We had already been on a lockdown for, I don't know, probably about 3 months for riots with the whites, the NLRs, the Nazi lowriders. Back then, the Nazi lowriders were able to walk the line, and they were in GP before they slammed them all down in the bay. Well, at that point, they were getting ready to lift the lockdown, and they wanted CDC, the captains and of Sea Yard and the lieutenants. They all wanted, to reaffirm the peace process between the Sureños and the Gabachos. So at that point, Serio and Crow, they came to my door. And keep in mind, at that point, I never met Serio. I already knew Crow because he was in my block. But they came to my door. They had heard that I got there, and they came to my door, and they asked me if I wanted to walk and talk with them and with the Woods in order to squash everything, let all camaradas know that everything was cool and whatnot, right? And I said, yeah, at that time I too was trying to make my bones, earn my stripes, and make a name for myself. And what better way than to start getting in the mix? So I came out, me, Serio, and Crow, and we started walking and talking with these gabachos and reaffirming everything was cool. Pretty soon we're going to be coming off lockdown, and all issues were resolved. And this is all stemming from the carnales already in Pelican Bay. So we did that. We're cruising around the yards, the upper and lower yard, and hitting all the blocks, stalking all the camaradas. And more or less, since I had just gotten there, I pretty much knew what my role was, and that was more or less just to be muscle, be a bodyguard, because I'm 6'4", I'm 220 pounds, and I got a little size, but back then I was younger and a lot more active, rambunctious, if you will, and so that was pretty much my role. I still fed my 2 cents into the camaradas and the blocks, but mainly Crow and Serio did that. Well, long story short, we ended up coming off the lockdown. Once we came up, we started programming, and by that time, Crow, he had
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He was getting ready to go to a level 3 yard, so they needed another vato to take over the yard. Well, Serio raised his hand, and there was another camarada who raised his hand. At the end of the day, Crow spoke up for Serio. Serio got the yard under Sherm, under Wedo Sherm. Wedo Sherm from Shelltown in San Diego, and he's a carnal that's been around. So Serio gets the yard under Sherm, and everything's flowing smooth. Everything's, after a long lockdown, people come in and out of the joint, and after a 3-month, 4-month lockdown, there's a lot of new heads there. Well, it just so happens to be that a lot of new heads can create a lot of new conflict. Especially if they were coming from other joints, if they had smut on their jackets, anything, right? And when I say smut on their jackets, their resume. So when we came off of the lockdown, there was a few cats that had to be hit, and I remember this one fool, and this was Serio's first call. This was his first call as a llavero or shot caller on the yard. His first call was to have this dude Bam Bam blasted, because prior to the lockdown, this dude Bam Bam owed Serio, and or owed money, and he didn't pay. So 3 months, 4 months later, after the lockdown, we come off. Dudes out in the yard. Well, they start formulating, how to hit this guy and whatnot. And me, I'm just in the mix. I was offered a block. Serio offered me a block, but I chose not. Because that wasn't really my thing. I didn't really like having the blocks and whatnot. Too much responsibility, right? But so I was just in the mix. I was right there, and it wasn't soon thereafter that me and Serio we celled up together. We celled up together and became cellies. But that first hit was Serio's first test, right? And this is his first legit earning of climbing up the ladder to become a carnal. So this was all depending on how he was going to handle this hit, and if it was going to get done correctly or sloppy or what. Well, fortunately for him, it was done correctly, because I remember distinctively too, because I was doing bar work. When the hit's going to go down on the yard, everybody's just to continue doing their program. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're gonna make notice and make it obvious for the victim. So I'm doing my bar work, right? And I already knew what was going to happen. And two shooters came up and blasted this dude Bam Bam right there on the neck, right there by the restrooms. Bam Bam was washing his hands, and his back was facing the handball court. And one of the cats, he came up, walking up, and just hit Bam Bam right in the neck with a piece. It was a nice metal piece, you know what I mean? And he got hit. He didn't drop, which is surprising me. He didn't drop. But by then, I think adrenaline took over, because he was no punk either. You know what I mean? But and then the other guy came up, the other vato came up and started hitting him as well. Back then, there's two shooters and the victim. There was no cleanup crews, there was none of that. You got two dudes that are supposed to handle it and handle it correctly, and that was that. So he ends up getting booked in the neck.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
This dude starts leaking everywhere, and he tries to fight back, but the other vato, the other wrestler, he jumps on top and starts taking flight on him as well. Well, it didn't go too long, because homeboy dropped to the knees, and by then, the COs, the gunner, they were already shooting. They shoot with the block gun first, and then, if they see that the dude's going to die, or he's being threatened in that manner of a murder, then he will break out the Mini 14. But at that point, the shooters hit him, dude dropped after just a tiny bit of a fight, and the other cats got down. Cops came on the yard, and that was it. Because at the end of the day, it was just a chicada. It wasn't a hit to kill him, but it was a hit just to check him and look, man, this is your warning. Next time, it could be a lot worse. In other words, pay your debts. You know what I mean? So the victim got removed, and the aggressor got taken to the hole, and we were obviously locked down for the rest of the day. Next day we came out, and it was all good. Later on down the line, I want to say about a week and a half, word came down from the Bay, and homeboy Serio got his props. he got commended for the task well done, and that was that. But that was his first test on making a correct call and following through with it, and making it legit. And it was a good hit. It was a clean hit, and it was legitimized. So he passed that first test. Thereafter, we were programming. We were out on the yard all day long. We'd work out, just do whatever we were doing, work out, mingle about, obviously take care of business, hit all the blocks, make sure everything was up to par, no complaints, and make sure everything was cool with the other races, right? So another time, after everything's cool, there was a bison. And I had mentioned this a while back in a previous session, but I never got into detail on it. Well, today I'm going to get into detail. So this bison, his name was Barras, and he was just some bison from Mexico. I think he was from the DF. And he was up there in Pelican Bay with all the brothers and whatnot. Well, he was in cahoots with from Chino from the DF, and Chino, he was another carnal that had been in the Bay for years. Well, this paisa, he worked for Chino, and so they were close. Well, Barras came from Pelican Bay and landed on Sea Yard, okay? And at that time, a lot of dudes from Pelican Bay were going to High Desert Sea Yard, to our yard. So, we had righteous, solid vatos on the yard. Not no riffraff, not no lames. Because pretty much if you were a riffraff or a lame, you were getting taken off the yard. So I remember Barras got there. And when he got there, he introduced himself as a carnal. And the reason he did that is because he said that Chino used to refer to him as brother. Okay? Even though he wasn't a carnal, Chino loved that bison like a brother, so he referred to him as brother. You understand? Well, apparently, in Barra's mind, he got it misconstrued and actually considered himself a carnal just because Chino referred to him as brother. That would be, Tony, like me calling you brother out of love. You understand what I'm saying? So, that was how that formulated. Well, Barras, he ran with it, and he took off with it, and he actually thought
you have 60 seconds remaining.
He gets to the yard, and, obviously, he's going to go to Serio first because he has the yard. So he goes to Serio, and I was right there the whole time. And he introduced himself as Varas, a senor, and we step back, and we go, okay. And it was a shock because, for one thing, we ain't never heard of this dude, right? Myself and Serio included, and a few other camaradas as well. So instantly, Serio, he ran a make on old boy. And what I mean when I say he ran a make is that he rode up to Huero Sherm up there in the Bay and inquired on Barras. And it came back down from Frio, we called him Frio, Huero Sherm, that this dude Barras was a poser, right? And he had to go. So, with that being the case, Serio took that in stride and started formulating that. Well, this is Serio's second test now, and I remember clearly that when it came back down, that Barras had to go. He was questioning not Sherm, but if the letter was legit coming from Sherm, because he's never been faced with this ideal before. You understand? So he was like, I guess you could say it was a form of shock, because he's never been faced with this, so he's like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? But the end result, he handled it well. So when we get the response back, or he gets the response back, he lets us read it, and we read it and whatnot. And it came back that Varas had to go. So he started formulating this holiday that had to be done, and he hustled up the two shooters. I think one was from Linwood and one was from 18th Street, but he hustled up these two shooters, and he got them on board. And at that time, in all honesty, I myself, I raised my hand for that, because at that time, that was major points in getting this dude Varas, because they had been trying to get him in the Bay, because even prior to him landing in High Desert, he was still, that's where he started, claiming he was a carnal, was in the Bay. You know what I mean? And it wasn't true. So even in the Bay, they were trying to get him, but because Pelican Bay was a shoe back then, it was so isolated and segregated that it was hard to get to anybody. You know what I mean? And he didn't have a cellie over there, so he was by himself. So when that's the case, pretty much the door separates everything, and at the end of the day, he's safe behind the door or in the cell, right? So he finally lands in High Desert. We get the response back from Sherm. It's legit. He's got to go, and it's being set up. I raised my hand for that, and I even formulated it to Serio and to a few others that how I would do it and what needed to be done, because like I said, that was me right there. And even me, I was trying to rise up within the Tika at that time. And this has to be in 2001, right? And but unfortunately, Serio didn't want me to go, because I was not only his perro, his dog, but I was his right-hand man right there, me and another camarada. And at that time, we were neighbors in the block. I had moved out, he moved somebody else in, and I moved somebody in with me. But we were right there next door to each other, which was planned to be like that, He could count on me and vice versa. So he wanted me to stay because of that reason. Because I was his dog, I was his right-hand man, and pretty much I was there to protect him, So he got those two other cats, and the way they were going to do it was they were going to hit him in day room at nighttime. The piece that they got was a nice piece of metal, probably, I want to say the blade alone was about 6 inches, and then the handle was about 2.5. So altogether, probably about an 8.5 inch piece. So they had that. One of the shooters had that, and then the other shooter had a nice, probably about a 4-inch pick, ice pick. So
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They planned to get this guy at day room. So at nighttime, during one of the day rooms, one of the camaradas distracted the CO from another section. So in other words, one of the camaradas went in another section. He called the CO to the window. The CO walked over to that window, and right when he did that, the two shooters in the other section, which was across the way, took off on Varas. Well, the first hit Varas straight in the ear. Went in the ear, straight to the brain, killed him instantly. Dead instantly. He dropped instantly. And then the other shooter came up and just started hitting him. They hit him from behind, from my understanding. He was sitting at the table, and they hit him from kind of like not directly behind, but from the side behind. Hit him in the ear, went in through the ear, straight to the brain. And at that time, the shooter who initially started that, he knew what the heck he was doing. He knew how to hit, and what points to hit on in order to take him out in one shot. And boom, that's what happened. He hit him in the ear, and the other shooter came up and just finished him off. Right? Blood everywhere, sangre everywhere. Dead on arrival. He was dead on arrival. The COs get there, clean it all up. IGI gets there, ISU gets there. They do their investigation, and it becomes a federal investigation. Okay? And the reason I say that is because Sherm, he's under investigation for the RICO, amongst other things, right? And all this didn't come into play till later, which I'll get into. But for Serio, that was his second test being passed, right? That was the second time he was faced with a dilemma, aced it with flying colors, and was able to move on correctly. He scored major points for that. Major points for that. And the shooters scored major points for that. They didn't become carnales, but they gained recognition in that respect. So that takes place. Well, after that, they slam the program, and they're doing their investigations, and they decide to raid the yard. And when they raided the yard, they snatched up Serio, took him to the hole. Well, they weren't done at that point, because a week later, they came and got me, took me to the hole. And when we went to the hole, that's when they turned around and validated me and a couple other camaradas. They didn't validate Serio at that time. They sent him to Corcoran's shoe. But once he got to Corcoran's shoe, they validated him there. Okay? So by then, after that murder of Aras, he's over here in Corcoran, he gets validated.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I'm in high desert, I get validated, and we're there for, 18 months I'm in high desert. I finally get to the Bay, and then Serio gets to the Bay. He's over there in C1. Serio catches in that I'm there, so he puts in a cell slip to move in with me, and long story short, they wouldn't do it. At that time, they weren't selling anybody up because there were so many murders happening in Pelican Bay with the AB and with the MA, and it was just too violent, and they didn't trust nobody with cellies, so they single celled the majority, and anybody coming in were single cell, right? The only way you could get a cellie is if it's like a year-long process where they investigate and all that. So we tried selling up a couple times, and it never got done. After we get to the Bay and after they deny our cell moves to sell up, Serio ends up going down to San Diego to the federal building for that murder and other issues, right? Widow Sherm's down there, and there's a few other carnales down there. So he gets down there, and he's going to court for all this, for all the murder and all that. They end up taking deals, all of them, and he gets his deal, Sherm gets his deal, and there's a couple other camaradas who got deals. Well, this is around, I want to say around 2010, 2011. Okay, I'm in Pelican Bay, but while they're down there fighting this case, Serio, he sends his investigator up to talk to me because he had his investigator get at me in order to go down to court down south to the federal building and just hang out and speak on behalf of him. And I said, hell yeah, I'm game for that. I'm down for that. So his investigator comes up and talks to me. It's situated to where I'm going to go down south, but it never happens because they take the deals. Well, during the process of them going to court, there's a dilemma with another carnal that's no good, right? And pretty much the only one who could get to him was, guess who? Was Serio. So they give Serio, the option to, you handle this and we're going to make you. You take care of this, and we're going to make you. You know what I mean? So he handled the issue that was put forth in front of him. He took out. I'm not sure of the dude he took out, but he took out a major player that needed to be taken out, who had messed up with the clica. Oh man, excuse my language. Who had messed up with the clica and who had to go. So when that happened, from my understanding, Serio, he hit this dude. He hit him. He came out of his handcuffs, and he took off on this dude, took him out, and from that point on, the Carnales, his sponsor, which was Wedo Sherm, put his name up to become a member of the inmate, right? So in 2011, I want to say the end of 2011, Serio, that's when I catch wind that Serio becomes a member. And since 2011 to present date, he's been a member of the clica. You know, I've heard throughout the years about him, and I've heard that his whole demeanor has changed because of that status. I heard that he was abusing a lot of younger camaradas, giving them ultimatums. If you don't do this,
you have 60 seconds remaining.
After he became a carnal, yeah, he let all that go to his head, from my understanding. He was mistreating camaradas, giving camaradas the ultimatums to, you either bring this dope in or you either bring this phone in, and if you don't, then you're going to get got, and so on and so forth. But prior to that, he was a good dude, man. I mean, you know, for our world, which is the life of a convict, and the life of the inmate, you know. But he let that go to his head, and he's still a brother to this day. But he, I heard he changed, man, changed a whole lot. And for me, you know, it's not who I am anymore. You know what I mean? And I have nothing to do with that life. I denounce it. But that is a story, and that is the fact of what my life used to be, you know. And again, and I say this almost all the time, it's sick, and it's sickening to hear, and it's embarrassing, you know what I mean? But within the prison, it's the way it is, you know. And as I denounce it, I rebuke it as well. You understand? So for them and for what they do, that's what they do. But it's a sad situation, and like I always say, for our youth, it's nothing to look forward to. It's nothing to look forward to. Doing all that doesn't make you a man. What makes you a man is being present with your family and loved ones, and if you have kids, being a father and being there to take care of your kids. That's being a real man. You know what I mean? So for this particular story and for Serio, you know, he does what he does, and I don't agree with it, but that's how he became a carnal. And to this day, he still stands as one. But when he started, he was just like everybody else. And if you look at it from my eyes, to this day, he still is just like everybody else. The only thing that people glamorize is that label of the MA. You know what I mean? And to me, that's all it is a label. Thank you guys for your time, and have a good day.